Welcome to episode 13 of Mina Narrates. I'm your host, Mina. Thanks for joining me in my library. This episode features part 4 of There's a Killer in My Town by Charlie Blackmoore, aka Beautiful Nightmare. It is the 5th part of an 11-part series that I am honored to be allowed to present to you. This series is planned to be released every Wednesday at 5:45 p.m. Central, 6:45 p.m. Eastern via YouTube Premiere through October to December 2nd. However, technical difficulties have been haunting my videos recently. I'm getting them out as close as I can, but they will be premiered. Before we begin, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that bell if you haven't, so you'll be notified when I release new videos. You don't want to miss any of this series. Now, let me whisper in your ears. Callie, you needn't worry about me quite yet, my dearest. I understand if my last letter may have seemed like it was the end for me. I can assure you that is not the case. I am alive, for whatever that's worth. You know, if I didn't have you, then what happened after my last... Actually, just let me explain. My stomach twisted in knots when I heard Callahan's voice come across the police scanner. He was the only person in the department, aside from Ethan, who knew me well enough to figure out where I would have gone. I was in the middle of packing up my things when the sound of tires on the dirt road caught my attention. I doused the oil lamp, grabbed a gun from the bag sitting next to the dining room table, and cautiously crept out of the back door. I held my gun out in front of me as I made my way around the house. Decaying leaves dampened with the fresh dust of snow loudly crumpled beneath my feet. I immediately froze in place. I needed to be careful because I had no idea whom could be lurking around the abandoned place. The sound of leaves being trampled on echoed through the silent area. I couldn't tell whether it was a person or an animal walking. I slowly made my way around the entire cabin. A dark car was parked in the cement place for it. There was no one sitting in the driver's seat. No one outside, which meant that they were in my cabin. I hauled ass to the back patio. The door was wide open, and I would have stayed outside. However, I already knew who the person was, so there really wasn't a reason to run. A heavy sigh escaped my lips as my feet carried me through the back door, boards moaning underneath my weight while going through the rooms once more. The tall, dark figure standing in the dining room must have been startled because they turned around just before a loud bang filled the room. It caused me to fall backward. My ears rung from the sudden noise, yet I was able to hear the low guttural groan that left my throat upon the instant pain in my left shoulder. I shakily held my right hand out in front of me, my index finger on the trigger to shoot the killer. There was no way in hell I was going to be the next victim. "I got you now, you son of a bitch," a dark voice said. "Lower your weapon right now. I will not hesitate to shoot," I authoritatively growled. "Drop yours first." "That's not going to happen, you bastard. I'm not going to be the next victim." Something clicked a few times before bright light shone in my face, temporarily blinding me, and the person sighed in relief despite the grimace on my face. "Thank God. I thought you were the killer," Callahan's rough voice says. "What the fuck, Callahan?" "Jesus Christ, Randall. You almost gave me a fucking heart attack." "Oh, I'm sorry. I hadn't realized you'd be a goddamn wuss," I sarcastically grumbled. "I thought you were the killer." Callahan hurried over to my side and grabbed a hold of my arm and pulled me to my feet. The silhouette of my body outlined the walls. I struck a match to relight the oil lamp before sitting down at the dining table. "Hey, I might be 60 years old, but I'm no wuss. You know everyone is on high alert around here." "Clearly. Did you really have to shoot me, though?" "Oh no, you aren't going to blame me for this one. I simply shot in the dark in hopes of wounding my attacker. There's a serial killer roaming around after all." "Well, I'm not the killer. And now I have a gunshot wound and nothing to clean it with, so thank you for that." Get over it, Dean. We have more pressing issues. We both know something about this case doesn't make sense, so tell me what you've got so far. Hell no. Seriously, he huffed. You don't trust me? I knew your parents, after all. Precisely why you know I can't trust anyone. We don't have time for this shit, Randall, so either tell me or I'll shoot you again and look for myself. Ugh, fine. I've studied the reports, photos, witness statements, everything. The only theory I have is the killer is a police officer, I reluctantly said. Callahan raised his head with a stern expression. Quit looking at me like that. Hypothetically speaking, if the killer were to be a police officer, then who would it be? He inquired. I swear, you better be here to solve this case, or so help me God, I'll be the one shooting. I am not going to be charged for murder when somebody is obviously trying to frame me, and no, I'm not crazy. Well, you're the smart one here. If someone in our department is doing this, then we need to figure it out, and soon. Who do you think it is? I curiously questioned. Well, we can rule out ourselves as suspects. You wouldn't kill anyone, let alone Marcus. And I wouldn't kill anyone, especially not the people in the election, because I wanted to retire. My guess is Jenkins. His statement about what happened with Phillips and Curtis doesn't make sense. In my mind, the killer would have offed all three instead of only two. Unless he was caught off guard. Dimitri could have easily been the one to kill Kyle and Micah. However, he had no blood on him, and a welt on his forehead about the size of a rock, the end of a metal pipe, anything really. Let's say that Collins is the killer. His shift with me didn't start until about 9 o'clock that night. Jenkins, Phillips, and Curtis responded to a possible breaking and entering around 6 hours before, right? Well, I was asleep, which means that Luke had more than enough time to hear the call, knock Dimitri out, kill the two officers, and go back home to clean up. It has to be either one or both of them. Maybe they're in cahoots. I honestly don't know, I explained. What makes you think Lucas is in on it? Luke has been gunning for the job of sheriff since the moment we got out of the police academy. The only reason why he didn't put himself in the running was because of his uncle Ethan, whom he really didn't talk to. I put my name in there for the fun of it. Ethan was going to win it. Everybody knew that. Luke could have been jealous about the relationship between Ethan and myself, so he could have easily offed the competition and everyone else to make it seem like I'm responsible. There's something not right about him. It wouldn't surprise me if he really were involved. We need proof, Dean. We can't just accuse one of our own of doing this without hard physical evidence. Callahan angrily sighed. Need I remind you that we all know forensic countermeasures? Besides, you're retired and I'm a rogue officer. How the hell are we supposed to find out who the actual killer is if we didn't find one shred of evidence from any of the crime scenes? We have a 1054 on 2nd Street behind Damon's Meat Shop, a dispatcher's voice interrupted. All units in the area, please respond. Copy that, a female voice says. Come on, we have to pack this up and go, Callahan said. Go? I'm not leaving here. You don't have a choice. I gave my son strict instructions to only radio Dimitri about a shooting here. So if Collins is a part of this, he will surely get here too. We have 10 minutes to get you and your shit into my daughter's car. She should be pulling up any minute now. She will take you to my house where you will stay until we can figure out who the killer is. Why the hell would you do that? Because I'm on your side, Dean. I'm not going to let an innocent man go to prison because I refuse to help. All right, I nodded. I wasn't really sure about the actual motive behind Callahan's sudden appearance and the need to help, but I'll take whatever I can get at the moment. He helped me shove everything back into the bags they had previously been in. I was about to douse the oil lamp when he grabbed my arm. I glanced up at him to see an expression that I didn't recognize. One more thing. I need you to shoot me, he said. What? Someone has to be here when Jenkins arrives, so shoot me. I'm not going to just do it, Dean, he shouted. Reluctantly, I held my gun out in front of me. I didn't want to shoot him, like I didn't want to shoot that guy behind the factory. I only wanted to shoot one person, the killer. I inhaled a deep breath, put my finger on the trigger, and bang! A loud noise filled the room. Callahan immediately fell to the floor, blood seeping out of the circular-sized wound in the middle of his forehead. I stood there frozen in shock at the sight before my eyes. It was one thing to see a dead body hours after the killing happened. To actually witness a murder at first hand was a whole different experience. I spun around on my heels to see a dark figure running from the kitchen. My legs quickly dashed after the person before my mind could tell me not to. Back patio was covered in at least an inch of snow. Footprints led from where I was towards the spot where I had hidden my car. My finger was still on the trigger of my gun. My right hand pointed at the ground while I spirited across the yard. The dark figure not too far ahead of me. The bastard was here the entire time. They had been listening to every word we were saying, yet they didn't make one sound in that rickety fucking cabin. The sound of our footfalls against the snowy leaves echoed throughout the forest, which means I could have been running in the complete opposite direction of the killer. However, these woods were like my passion, if you will. I had spent so many years in this place that I knew it like the back of my hand. A metallic click sounded when my right foot hit the ground. Instantaneous pain shot through my ankle when the teeth sank deep into the flesh. The sound of bone cracking mixed with my cries of agony floated into line of hearing. My ass hit the cold hard ground with a pathetic thud while tears welled to the brim of my eyes. My hands trembled while I clutched the thing that had grabbed a hold of me. Warm liquid oozed between my fingers as I did my best to pry the metal shards out of my ankle. I knew the bear traps were around here somewhere. I just hadn't thought I would be the one to set it off. I should have stayed with Callahan. I should have called 911 and let them take me into custody. But no, I just had to chase the killer. I stared ahead to see the dark figure again. The only thing I could see underneath the half moon was a perfect set of white teeth. The sadistic fucker was smiling. The figure disappeared into the coverage of naked trees. I laid back on the ground, staring up at the night sky, gray clouds briefly covering up the twinkling stars. I could not believe that I had allowed myself to actually get into this situation. These were the times that I really wish I could go back in time and redo everything. I would have insisted on staying far the hell away from these cases if I could have known that this was what was going to happen. The little voice in my head begins to speak. The words it's feeding me made a lot of sense. If I could survive my parents, get through the death of my brother, and take care of my sister, then I could get through this even if I didn't have Marcus to turn to anymore. My hands fumbled the ground around me. Slimy, moss-covered twigs poked up at my fingertips until a more solid thing grazed my hand. I weakly picked up what I assumed to be a large branch, stuck it between the metal teeth of the godforsaken trap, and did my best to pry the thing apart. I pulled my contorted, screwed-up ankle out of the trap as soon as I felt the pressure release. I struggled to stand up on my good foot and used all of my strength to drag my right leg behind me as I followed my footprints back to the cabin. I tripped on a branch. The pain in my shoulder and ankle intensified as I pulled myself onto the patio, through the back door, and into the cabin. I glanced over my shoulder to see a trail of blood-covered snow behind me. I propped myself up against the kitchen cabinet for several moments. The amount of blood loss was starting to affect me, but I wasn't going to let my life end this way. I don't remember what really happened after that because I woke up sometime later to see dawn breaking over the horizon, sunlight poking through the uncovered windows. I dragged myself into the dining room, briefly glancing at Callahan's now cold body, and crawled into the chair. I'm currently writing this to you despite the blood still seeping out of my shattered ankle and bullet wound. I just want you to know if I don't make that I can't say it. I have to call in the police and get myself to a hospital whether I want it or not. This is not how I'm going to end, Callie. I'll write you again. I swear it. Dean. Thank you for listening to Part 4 of There's a Killer in My Town by Beautiful Nightmare, aka Charlie Blackmoore. For this reading, I'm using the paperback version of the book published on the 20th of July, 2020. If you want to get your own, there's a link in the description. You can follow her on Amazon or follow her on one of her Twitter accounts, both linked in the description as well. Speaking of which, she has just published another book of short stories. I'll have the link for you to choose the paperback or Kindle version in the description. Now, Edwin Callahan is dead. Luke Collins is acting sheriff. Dean is shot and has a broken leg thanks to the bear traps his father put around the house. Dean is losing a lot of blood. Is he going to survive to have a chance to catch the murderer? What do you think of his theory? Do you have an idea who the murderer is? Do you have any guesses? I'm not giving any spoilers. If you have read the book, please do the same. What do you think of the situation in Snow Creek now? Let me know what you think in the comments. While you're down there, please give the video a like and share it out. If you aren't subscribed, consider subscribing and ring the bell until it rings so you don't miss the next part. I want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed. I appreciate your faith in me and enjoyment of my content. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been so welcoming, supportive, and helpful. I know I've asked for a lot of input from you all. I just want to give you the best quality content I can. Until we meet again, have a great day or night, and be safe.